Hello and welcome to the Las Vegas Executive Risk, Legal Access, and Digital Protection Roundtable, a governance-focused executive strategy session brought to you by Ashley Hughes-Jefferson Consulting, LLC. And good evening. Thank you for being here. This is a governance-focused execution strategy session, and today we're actually going to talk about the governance focus for risk, legal access, and digital protection. So this is not a sales presentation. It's not a networking mixer. It's a structured conversation, and it's about risk and how prepared leadership differs from reactive leadership. As we move deeper into 2026, exposure is no longer isolated. It's interconnected. And tonight, we'll explore what that means and how to approach it structurally. Let's begin with the risk reality. So, in 2026, executive exposure is interconnected and it's across digital ecosystems, contracts, identity infrastructure, and vendors, as well as regulatory oversight. Risk is no longer theoretical, it's operational. One vendor breach becomes our problem or your problem. One contract oversight becomes litigation, and one identity vulnerability becomes reputational damage. What has changed is not just technology, it's velocity, the speed at which exposure compounds, and that requires structure. So that structure is what I call the March framework. And we'll get into that right now. So the March framework is a governance aligned risk model built around five structural pillars: methodology, AI and automation, risk and regulatory alignment, consulting infrastructure, and human-centered strategy. As you know or can see, the M is for methodology, the A is for AI and automation, the R is for risk and regulatory alignment, and the C is for consulting infrastructure. And then last but not least, the H is for the human-centered strategy. It integrates legal access modules, digital protection planning, and governance oversight into one cohesive structure. And we're going to walk through each pillar as it applies to executive leadership in 2026. So let's start with the structural risk. So the structural risk is actually focusing on one core question: how are decisions made, documented, delegated, and defended? Most organizations grow operationally, few grow structurally. When governance clarity is weak, documentation discipline suffers, and oversight controls loosen, and accountability becomes verbal instead of documented. So crises happen and they become reactive instead of prepared. So, with that being said, unstructured growth creates hidden exposure. So, ask yourself, if a dispute emerged tomorrow, could your decision trail defend you? And that is definitely something to reflect on. So, AI and automation. AI accelerates digital exposure, not because AI is dangerous, but because AI amplifies visibility and data aggregation. Executive risk now include digital footprint exposure, vendor AI dependency, identity vulnerability, social engineering and escalation. Innovation without governance discipline increases structural risk. A question would be, or actually, a question is not, are we using AI? Because we all know that more than likely AI is being used. The question is our governance maturity evolving at the same pace? So the next thing we're talking about is risk and legal access. So this module is focusing on risk alignment that requires structural legal access, not episodic crisis hiring. So most leaders engage legal support only when something goes wrong, but governance maturity asks, is contract renew or is the contract review built into our process? Or is trial defense preparedness evaluated? Is identity monitoring integrated? Are we proactive or reactive? Some leaders evaluate membership based legal access through independent provider law firms as part of a broader risk mitigation strategy. This is not about replacing legal counsel, it's about structure, access, and early intervention. So, proactive access reduces volatility. Next thing we're going to talk about is the consulting infrastructure. So the infrastructure gaps, growth often outpaces the infrastructure. And that is a common thing. So the common gaps include incomplete documentation systems, vendor contract blind spot, delegation without oversight, as well as weak dispute escalation plan. Missing contingency planning. One dispute can create disproportionate disruption when infrastructure is weak. So governance is not just compliance, it's durability. So just keep that in mind. So the human-centered governance part of it is governance is not only structural, it's behavioral. So executive decisions are often under pressure and defined outcomes. So executive decisions usually have some type of crisis psychology, narrow thinking, reactive leadership escalates volatility, and prepared leadership actually reduces the volatility. Prepared leaders definitely want to have a calm preparedness that creates optionality. The strongest governance posture is not fear driven, it is structured. So, some reflections that you should probably consider is, where would a dispute create maximum disruption? Is your legal support model proactive or reactive? What part of your digital footprint would concern you in an audit? Does growth exceed governance control? And are identity risk addressed at the executive level? So that's food for thought on those questions. Now, something that I wanted to actually present to you briefly is just a professional expansion for you. For governance focused professionals, some consultants integrate legal access and identity protection education into their advisory models. These is this is actually something that is educational. It's not a sales function, but it's an educational and risk aligned extension. For those interested, I'm happy to discuss that privately. Clear role boundaries, ethical positioning, and governance first expansion. And to actually reach out to me regarding this option for you professionally, you can actually visit my link tree, which is a Hughes-Jefferson. It should be in all of my links in my bios on my social media. So the disclosure that I wanted to tell you about is this session is actually for education purposes only. So it's education in nature, educational. So legal services referenced are provided through independent law provider law firms via membership-based participation. I do not provide legal advice or legal representation. No income guarantees or outcome assurance are implied. And tonight is just about structure, not solicitation. So last but not least, thank you for your partnership in governance. Your partnership in governance matters. Prepared leadership reduces volatility. Structured access reduces volatility as well. And then structured access reduces disruption. And calm governance reduces reactionary decisions. So keep that in mind when you're considering what this can do for your business. Also, last but not least, optional private consultations are available regarding the membership-based service. And thank you again for the conversation that most leaders avoid until it's too late. And you can see that you can reach out to me for my resources here at https://link, which is LINK, then tree is TR, then it's a period, and then it's EE/A Hughes Jefferson, and that's AHUGHESJEFFERSON. I do appreciate you for watching the video, learning something new, and how you can implement these steps in specific, the March steps in the month of March, point intended, for your business. Have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you all so much for tuning in.